How did the Igbo become light-skinned? During the 1500s, at the end of the Middle Ages, Portugal conquered the seas and sought to acquire spices, gold, and slaves from Africa. The Portuguese first arrived in Africa around 1445 in present-day Guinea-Bissau. In 1460, they arrived in Sierra Leone. And in 1471, they occupied modern-day Ghana. 1475, they had started to penetrate modern-day Nigeria. By 1485, the Kingdom of Benin, modern-day Nigeria, was occupied, and the Portuguese traded with the local Africans. And the local Africans, the chieftains, they gave the Portuguese women. And of course, the Portuguese, who never brung their women to Africa, had sex with these women, and they procreated. So this is the nuts and bolts of why you have such a large population of multiracial people in Africa. However, why do African people deny this fact, especially some Nigerians? Well, the issue is this. Light-skinned is seen as a white feature, which it is. And it is prized due to the fact that African culture, that is Nigerian culture, that is Igbo culture, has abandoned its African traditional religion. And because of that, Nigeria will always be backwards. Now, to rid themselves of this backwardness, they must first not deny who the Igbo people are. The Igbo people are people who have brown to black skin and African textured hair. And those people who were absorbed by the Igbo people, people who are of multiracial lineage, are just that, multiracial people who speak Igbo or identify as Igbo, nothing less. The same issue occurred in the United States. Many multiracial people, products of unions between Africans and Europeans, were absorbed into the African population. But keep in mind, these people kept to themselves and identified as African American for the most part. So a lot of them, a good proportion of them, were not absorbed. This is why we have Creoles in New Orleans and other groups that saw themselves as royal families of the African population, so-called light-skinned people. Now, this is not to denounce multiracial people, but this is to let people understand how they came about. They are not African people because they lack the trait of African people, that is, brown to black skin, and many of them lack African textured hair. This would be like calling Mariah Carey a African woman when she obviously is not, since her mother is a white woman. Please do not follow this mental illness of believing that multiracial people are black people for the sake of feeding into a mental illness at bottom, which is self-hatred. Self-hatred is the worst mental illness that an African person can have. So this is how the Igbo people became light-skinned, but not really.